Hello viewers, today I have decided to do a quick video about this F30, and video is going to be all about suspension upgrades, the most wanted suspension upgrades on this chassis. This especially is 340, the most wanted car from BMW enthusiasts right now, because it has the B58, and as we know, this engine has a lot of potential. That's why everyone wants it. This car especially is really cool because it has M performance brakes. Let me show you. Probably when I remove the rims you're going to see it, but it has M performance brakes and exhaust. So this is the most wanted type of setup on F30. So this is going to be a brief video about the suspension upgrades and the things that we came across when doing them. Here we have two front shocks, and for those of you that are familiar, this is the B6 version. DampTronic stands because of these valves here, which is controlled with this box from the, I think the wiring goes directly to the IBS, if I'm not wrong. I need to check, but I don't remember. So yeah, we're going to replace the wiring also. The shocks came with the wiring, and yeah, you can install also B8, which are a little bit more beefier, but the owner wants a B6. He wants to keep the valves, that's why we're going to install this. And actually now we're going to remove the ones from the car which should be B4, and we're going to directly compare them with the B6. We're going to see the difference. As you can see, we have decided to buy new dust covers, OEM ones, also the shock mountings, once again new ones. We have bought a new hub on the right side because the car had some accident in the USA, and the owner wants everything to be perfect and to be sure that the suspension is going to be aligned. So that's why we're going to replace the hub with new OEM BMW one. Also on the same side we're going to replace the bearing, once again OEM bearing. Yeah, this is not related to the suspension upgrades, but we're going to replace that on the side of all the job. And the other thing which all of the owners want, I'm going to show you when I lift up the car. Okay, so the car is on the lift, and one of the things that all the people wants to do is to install these control arms, and as you can see the logo, this is from the M-Power version, and this is giving additional between 1 and 1.5 degrees of negative camber. And one of the biggest advantages other than this is that from bushing on this point of the control arm, now we have a ball joint, which means we're going to have zero play in this point of the suspension. This is one of the biggest advantages. We have done it on the both sides, and actually most of the people were claiming that if you buy the lever for the control of the headlights from M-Power version, once again, which is shorter than this one which was originally installed, is going to fit, but it turns out that it's far away from fitting, because I don't remember where I put it, but if I find it I'm going to show you how short it is, probably half of this size. And yeah, it was impossible to fit it on the lever of the control of the headlights, so we needed to do our own version, which is with two uniballs and a stud. For sure it's going to work. I think it's going to be reliable, so just take in mind that if you buy the lever from the M-Power version, probably it's not going to work out also on your car. Not sure why people are claiming that it's going to work. And the other thing that people wants to do, which we haven't done it on this car, is to change also this control arm, the bigger and curved control arm, which is going to give you additional roughly 1 degree more caster. The caster is going to provide you a little bit better handling, and obviously enough we are replacing the shocks because these are totally gone. As you can see the leakage on the both sides. Probably this car have jumped somewhere. I'm not sure is this leaking, but I think both of them were leaking. Probably the car have jumped somewhere, and that's why the shocks are gone, because once again the car was involved in some small accident. The car was not so bad. We have replaced a lot of plastics underneath because they were broken, but now everything is new OEM one, and the car is back to its original glory, let's say. Now I'm going to remove the shocks, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to compare the B4 versus the B6 shocks. And the right shock is removed. As you can see, now I see it better. This is how much oil dripped out from the shock. Just to show you that they look identical. Put them side by side. Yeah, I have removed it from the hub, but the next one I'm going to remove it and I'm going to show you a little bit better. The bearing was a good call because it's gone. It moves pretty free, and actually it has some play on it, probably because of the hit on the wheel. So yeah, this bearing should be replaced for sure. And yeah, once again, that's why we are replacing the hub. So new versus old, as we can see, it should be all fine. Yeah, the orientation of the block is a little bit different. This is pointing downwards and this is pointing upwards. It's on the upper side of the valve. I think the cable is going to be long enough. We should not have issues with this. I don't like this rubber. As we can see, it has some damage here. It was rubbing somewhere here. Yeah, it's getting a little bit thinner on this point, and that's why I'm going to replace it tomorrow. It's not so expensive. I think it was somewhere around between 10 or 15 euro for each side. So I want everything to be perfect, so that's why we're going to replace this rubber also. This is the old dust boot and shock mount, something like that I think was called, which we're going to replace. Yeah, they look decent, but it's always a good idea to replace this, so to increase the life of your new shocks. In our case, these shocks are expensive, and yeah, that's why we're going to do everything as good as possible. So the new bushings for the spring came out. Here is the part number. So I'm going to start reassembling the shocks. Just to show you the new hub. It looks like I'm going to try to preserve the inner of the hub to not get any rust on it by using this. Here it is, a rust blocker. Hopefully it's going to work out. There is a lot of good reviews about it, because I don't want after a few months or even a few weeks the hub to look like that. So we're going to check that. Hopefully it's going to work out. Okay, so one shock assembled with the spring. I have once again replaced this and the alignment. Let me show you. The spring should stop at this point here, and on the disc cover also here. So yeah, I didn't saw, but it has a small amount of damage on this plate, which is not big of a deal. It is just holding, I believe, the brake pad wear sensor or the IBS sensor. I'm not sure. I'm going to check, but I'm going to straighten it up, and after that going to put this rust blocker that I showed you. Okay, so for installation of the hub, we're going to need to align this channel here to this notch, as you can see here. So let me show you. And now, as we can see, it's getting stuck because it's a little bit tighter. So has it have came up with this tool. I'm not sure is it their idea, but this is how it looks like. Yeah, this is not a hazard, but it's going to do the job. So it's going to make the job a little bit easier by you can clearly see what it's doing. It's going to expand a little bit the hole, and it's going to make the installation a little bit easier. So I don't want to go crazy because you can snap the aluminum, putting a lot of pressure here. Okay. So I think this is how far it should go in by checking. Yeah, this is it. And now it's ready to be assembled. So just to show you, this is how far it is in. I'm going to check it once again, but yeah, I think it's pretty much snuck in place. Actually, I think it's going to be easier now to install the bearing, because if you look at it like that, I'm not going to have enough access to this bolt to torque it to spec. The other three ones we have access, but the fourth one we're not going to have access. So I'm going to remove once again the shock, as you saw is pretty easy. Going to install the bearing, going to torque it to spec, and after that going to reinstall the shock in the hub. And after a little bit of struggle of tightening up the wheel bearing, now we are ready to install everything. So the torque spec for these bolts on the wheel bearing is 80 Nm plus 90 degrees on all the 4 bolts. Originally they don't have thread locker, but I have put a little bit of thread locker, so to be just extra secured. Okay, so direct comparison between the B4 and B6, as we can see. Pretty much they are the same. This one, the B6 is just a smidge higher because of the turret. Something interesting that we noticed, the spring is going to be a little bit higher on the B6, because if we direct put them side by side, like, I'm not sure how to put them, but probably something like so, we're going to see that here is a little bit higher than here on the B4, the original one. Same comes for this side, so for sure on this cap, let's say, on the shock, the spring is going to sit a little bit higher than here. So I'm not sure how this is going to came with the right height. We're going to see. The other difference is the attachment of the slave bar link. As we can see here, it's a little bit more reinforced on the original before, and here we have just one sheet of metal. The body, so let's take the diameter of the before. So it is 62, and on the B6 58. So 4 millimeters less. The other one is already installed. Now I'm going to install the left one, and we're going to see how the car sits in the end. How actually it was going to be good to compare before and after, but the owner going to change his rims, other ones, and yeah, when the shocks are looking like that, I'm not sure how relevant this comparison is going to be. So we're going to take in mind only the final looks, what's the right height with it. Okay, so everything installed, the both shocks. Just to show you how everything runs out. The only thing that left is to install the dust cover on the wheel, and pretty much we are ready for the test drive and see how it handles. Pretty much it is plug and play. Everything fits as on the other shocks. Okay, so we're not going to leave it like that. We're going to end up this video with the pretty much all the suspension mods that most of the guys are doing. Right now, as we can see the height of the car, yeah, right now the car is not lifted on the lift. This is how high it is with the B6 on the front, and right now it's with B4 from behind. But finally the owner decided that he wants to upgrade also the rear shocks, so we're going to install the rear B6 DampTronic shocks on the back, and also he decided that he wants to install the full M control arms on the front. As we remember previously, he have installed only one of the control arms, so to gain a little bit more camber, but now we're going to install the other two control arms from the M suspension, which is going to provide a little bit additional caster. So here they are. This is the both control arms which we're going to install on the front, left and right, as you can see, right and left. So the part number, yeah, the part number is actually here, but yeah, it doesn't look very good. So yeah, it's OEM, they're original, yeah, here. They're different, of course. One, I think it was ending with 1 and the other one with 2. So with 2 it ends the right one, and with 1 ends the left one. So we have a little bit difference on the bushings. We're going to need to do some modifications, because the bushing on the regular F30, it was a little bit higher, so we're going to need to do some sleeves, so to be able to install this bushing on place, which I think is not going to be big of a deal. And here are the rear shocks, once again with the installation on it, once again tested on Nürburgring, pretty cool. When I remove one of the original ones, we're going to compare them side by side. Of course we have both new dust covers and shock bushings. We're going to replace them. We're going to install the original mounting on the shock on the top. So now I'm going to lift up the car. We're going to remove everything, the old control arms and the old shocks, and I'm going to show the comparison to see how it looks like. Okay, so the control arm is removed, the original one from the F30, and this is the one which we're going to install. As we can see, both of them. So just direct comparison between the M1 and the regular one. As we can see, this one, if we put them like so, is a little bit longer, or at least it looks like that. And yeah, as we can see, it's pretty much almost straight, and this one is kind of curved. The power joint looks the same, and probably is pretty much the same. But the main difference is the bushing, as many of you probably know. So this is how the M bushing looks like, and this is how the regular looks like. As we can see, the difference in height. So I'm going to measure it, so to show you what is the difference. So the M control arm, so roughly 76, 77. So yeah, roughly somewhere around that. And let's see on the regular one. So the regular one is so roughly 95. So 76 minus 95, around roughly 18 millimeters more than the M bushing, which means we're going to need to do some sleeves on the both sides, because there is a little bit difference. The bigger sleeve of course is going to be on this side, and the smaller one is going to be on this side. By our calculations we're going to make 1.5 millimeter washer on this side and roughly 16 and a half millimeters on this side, so to be the same, the center line of the control arm to be on the same place as the original one. I already have cut some guiding holes on the bushing, so let me show how it looked before. As we can see, previously it didn't have this. So this is going to be something like a guiding sleeve, so make the installation of the spacers a little bit easier, because it's going to be pressed in the bushing, and the guidance of the bolt is going to be much more easier like that. So I'm going to do the same on this control arm. I'm making it with 15 millimeters drill bit, so it's good enough, I believe. So I'm going to do the same on this, and we're going to make the spacers, and I'm going to show you how it looks in the end. Just quick difference on weight. I need to do this previously, but I forget on the shocks and on the other control arms, but yeah, sorry about this. But let's see what is the difference in weight on the control arms. So this is the M control arm, and 1.4 kilos. Let's see the regular one. Yeah, when we install the sleeves, it's going to increase the weight with 10 grams. And this is the regular 1.6, so 200 grams more than the M1s. So in total we're going to reduce the weight with 400 grams. Amazing. And now I'm going to do the same comparison with the shocks. We're going to see what's going to be the difference between this shock and the original one. But yeah, I forget to do the same on the front ones and the front control arms, the straight ones. Okay, so the old shock is removed, and comparing them side by side, as we can see, they are pretty identical. This is a little bit thicker than the B8, not a big difference, but there is a difference. Let me check what is the difference. So the original one is roughly 18 millimeters, and the B6 is roughly 14, so 4 millimeters less. So how much this is going to contribute to the weight? Let's see. So let's start with the original old shock. So let's turn on the scale. And let's see. Exactly 3 kilos. I have removed the nut on the both shocks and the wiring. So the wiring is removed on the both shocks. So so the measuring to be accurate as possible. Actually this feels heavier just by holding it. So let's see, am I right? So yes, 500 grams more than the original ones. So in total we're going to gain 1 kilo more with these two shocks. It was going to be interesting to see the front ones, how heavier they were, but yeah, we're going to reduce a little bit weight with the control arms, but we're going to add with the shocks. So almost we're going to add the same amount as we remove, but doesn't matter, just wanted to show you the difference. So now I'm going to install the dust covers, the bushing, and I'm going to install them in the car, and I'm going to show you in the end how it looks like. Okay, so we are pretty much done with the modification. So this is what is the idea behind everything. So as I told you, I have drilled up a little bit so to guide the sleeve in the control arm like that. Yeah, I need to hit it a little bit so to stay in place, but like that's going to be much more easier to install it in the front axle. And yeah, the idea is once again to gain the same height on the bushing. As we can see, yeah, it's a little bit dark. Let me put the light like that, it's a little bit more visible. So we are trying to make the same height as this bushing, and as we can see here we have two sleeves, one here and one small here. Once again, this is 1.5 millimeters. I'm going to say why after a second. And as we can see, pretty much the same height. Actually, there were a little bit of difference between the both bushings. These ones around 1.4, 1.5 millimeters of the height of these bushings. The same comes for the original bushings on the M control arm. So around 1.4, 1.5 millimeters of difference on the height. So I guess it's not so drastic if you mess it up a few tenths of the millimeter. It's not big of a deal if you mess it up there. You need to install the sleeves on the opposite side on the other control arm because of the orientation of the mounting. As we can see, roughly 16 millimeters, but you can go 16.2, 16.3. It's not big of a deal. And this one, the smaller one, is 1.5 millimeters. So roughly the sleeves should equal around 70.5, 18 millimeters in total. So we have decided to make this from stainless steel, so to not get rust in the future. It's going to last forever. For sure it's going to last. But probably we're going to need to change these bushings sooner or later after a few years. So then we're going to probably try to remove this and install it on the other bushing. So yeah, for now we're going to install them like that. Let's put them on the car and see how everything aligns. Okay, so I decided to put the bolts so to align them perfectly with the bolt hole here, and this is how longer is the M power control arm than the original one from the F30. This should be, yeah, like that. So yeah, the angle is pretty identical. Maybe this is a little bit to the left, but surely there is a difference in length. So everything assembled, the control arms, as you can see here, this is the right one, and how the sleeves are looking like installed. This is the left one. As we can see, the bigger sleeve is on the nut side, on the both sides, and they fit perfect. So yeah, everything assembled. The rear shocks, I don't remember if I showed you that we have installed them, but they're in place. It's pretty straightforward with the new installation. Meanwhile, we have serviced the gearbox, but this is nothing related to the suspension mods. And now I'm going to install all the dust covers, and we're going to put the car to the ground, and I'm going to show you how the wheel looks like. This is what mods you're going to need to do to install this control arm. Yeah, this is pretty straightforward, except the headlight lever here. But yeah, let's put it on the ground. The car is on the ground. I have moved it a little bit backward and forward so to make the suspension to lay down, and this is how high it is with all the B6 all the B6 shocks. This is what is the height right now with these rims and tires, of course. Right now the car is running What is this tire? 255 40 18-inch rim on the rear, and on the front 225 45 once again 18-inch rim. Actually the owner have bought 19-inch wheels, but he haven't installed them yet, so this is what we get right now. And yeah, let me show you what is the tire fitment in the wheel arch. This is how it is right now. There is more room on the back than on the front. So on the front we have 2 fingers and a little bit, and on the back we have 3 fingers and a little bit. So 1 finger more on the back than the front. So of course now we're going to need to do a wheel alignment, which I don't have in the shop, and the car is going to be pretty much ready to be driven. So yeah, I think this is the best mods you can do on your F30 and keep it stock as possible, so we can call it OEM plus. So yeah, this is it. Okay, so this is with the new wheels. This is 19-inch. I'm going to show you the size of the tire, and actually in the video in the description below I'm now going to write up here the specs of the rims and the tires. This is how it's looking like with the suspension. This is the rear, of course, and this is the front, as you can see. And the camber probably is going to be hard to see it. Right now the car has 1.3 degrees of camber on the front. So to show you here like that how lifted it is, and once again with everything installed. So yeah, this car looks like with beefy tires. So okay guys, this was all about the suspension upgrades you can do on this F30. M control arms, B6 all around shocks. Yeah, probably we can do something about it with the springs, but this is the most common things that people are doing. Yeah, it's not budget friendly for sure, it's kind of expensive, but the car is going to be much more precise and much more track usable for sure. So yeah, this is all about. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.